Yeah.
But how come you can't open the public if there's only 10 people in the tower? Come on. I feel ready to go. Well, greetings everyone, thanks for turning up. Apologies.
Chair, Nathan Reynolds, who's unwell, and Councillor Carmen Turias, who is unable to attend. That's who I've heard.
Confirmation of the minutes of 28th May. Can I have a mover, please? And a second. Well, goes without saying, doesn't it? We'll put the motion. Passed unanimously. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Marisol, do you feel you have any declaration of pecuniary interest to make? No. Okay, well, we'll move on. I need to read the following words. In considering the following land use planning matters, the Sorell Planning Authority intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. 5. Land use planning. We read the recommendation, or do you want me to read it out? This is for subdivision, 16-lot subdivision in Valleyfield Road, Sorell. So if just move on, we'll move for this, please. Second that. Beth. Do you have questions concerning this?
Who's through the chair? Firstly, I'd like to thank Shane or Greg for answering my email regarding concerns over the landslip area and the water on plot number 8. But I do have concerns about stormwater runoff because it's a very steep undulating site. The lowest point or the stormwater is then connected and becomes the council's responsibility. But on the Valleyfield end of the development, the stormwater will run downhill to the lowest point and then off the council's, well, it won't be the council's concern anymore because it will run onto the neighbours on number 7. The road is being moved close to the boundary of number 7. There's an existing culvert on their boundary which takes the water off the property as it is at the moment, but there's no hard standing at the moment, and runs onto number 7 and under their driveway and then into their stock dam. I'm not sure that's an appropriate discharge of water. Is there some way we can sort of you can't make water run uphill without great expense. Is there some way of mitigating the pollution that's going to occur and the silting of their dam? They do have livestock there. They do have ewes and lambs, or ewes inland.
Yep.
I know there isn't a great deal of pollution, but if there was garden spray, phosphate or anything like that, it could pollute the water and then it directly affects them.
Yeah.
Is there some way of preventing that, stopping that, reducing that?
Through the chair, so what's proposed, the driveway into number 9 will be upgraded to a public road.
Yes.
Which may or may not require an upgrade of the culverts under the driveway. But that'll be effectively developed as any other rural council road. So there should be the water will be captured better, the drainage will be better than what's there for a private driveway. But ultimately, the water will drain to the lowest point, so there will be water.
Which is a
into
long
the
way, which is a long way from the Valleyfield junction. Water doesn't run uphill.
So through the chair, can I just clarify, so that's the dam you're referring to, councillor Gagnon?
Yes.
So it's the conversion of that drive to a public road.
Yeah.
It'll be discharged into, having the right to discharge into that is an element. In the sense of, does it require an easement separate to the discharge?
Yeah, well, council's culverts under roads don't require any sort of easement as such in a rural area to drain to, so. I mean, we haven't got the final road design as of yet, but yeah, there will be culverts at any of the low points on the road. They'll be the typical council standard. As will be the drainage, which should help any sort of cross down slope fall.
So it'll be drainage, sorry. But on like the lower side, there'll be like a, would there be like a spoon drain or something?
Yeah, the drains will be bigger than what
Yeah.
it is now.
Rather than in the current photos, it's just flat. So obviously,
Yes.
yeah, which will capture it. Is that what?
I walked the property and there is an existing concrete culvert and a pipe under the driveway from number 7 that drains off that property. I just don't think it's, I know morals don't always come into the planning scheme, but it's not morally correct, but once the council has adopted that road, to discharge that amount of water onto somebody's private property through their dam, and it's not a very big dam, that picture sort of, it's not particularly deep, it was created for stock use, and then it will overflow to the highway across their paddock. So potentially, they can't get across that paddock with a vehicle, or it could isolate livestock. You can't physically get the water from those houses onto Valleyfield Road.
Yeah, through the chair, so the water's just following the low point
Yes.
at the moment, which is
Yes.
why the dams would be there at the moment. So there's not a lot that we can do to control that, because that's part of the natural, that is the natural water course. So it's just a case of the culverts and the drains will be council standard rather than private, so there will be better infrastructure there. But I don't think there's any way that we could stop the flow
No.
of water into that dam without drying it up.
I appreciate that, but there's quite distinct instructions on the Rosendale end of the development to prevent or slow or filter water flowing into the Iron Creek. Could the same methods be implemented on the Valleyfield end to stop that, the sediment or the pollutants running into number 7?
Possibly could be looked at the design stage. Depending, like, it might be steep enough terrain that it warrants some sort of riprap stonings to slow the velocity
Yes.
down before it goes in.
Yeah, that would be, that would be something.
Yeah.
I think I read that the standard pipe from the council's perspective is actually smaller than is larger than the pipe running under their driveway. So therefore, if the council's pipe holds more water, it will overflow onto their driveway, causing erosion. Yeah, it's just that there's a multiple of scenarios that could happen.
Yeah, through Jen, so we haven't got details on exactly how big the culverts need to be, so the design engineers will calculate that at the time.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if it would be smaller though.
Could we put some sort of condition in place that attention is drawn to to this issue, this matter? Either to slow the flow, to filter, to, just to improve the situation as is.
Yeah. It could be, it's reasonable too, we just need a motion.
We need a motion, we need a wording.
I'm happy
Either
to,
that, or we could just, write to, include some advice on the thing about what we're anticipating next week.
does the developer have to follow advice, or are they allowed to?
The developer can't build anything until, Ish signs off the design drawing, so there is an element of control at that point.
So at this stage, we could signal our concern about this, but we're not saying go ahead. They have to come back to us and tell us what they've done and see if that satisfies the council.
I'd actually like to move the motion through the chair, if that's okay, to make sure that something is put in place, something appropriate to put in place to mitigate the drainage onto, mitigate the flooding, or the silting, or the pollution of the property at number 7.
Possible flooding or flooding?
Well, it's
Likely flooding, I should think, from what you're
More
saying.
contamination.
sorry.
Jim?
More contamination.
Yes,
Yeah, through the chair, I'm just trying to work out it's a motion to amend the recommendation by way of inclusion of an additional condition. I'm just wondering between Shane and Ish if the existing conditions provide enough coverage already. Just give me a minute to check it, please.
Jane needs to get the course already. Forward concerns, so this isn't a surprise to you.
No. So, we've all had a review of the representations and across them, so there was nothing really jumping out that we thought needed a particular requirement.
Through the chair, I think the standard conditions provide enough head of power for council to ensure that there's a range of conditions that all talk to capacity and appropriateness of the stormwater design and the road construction. It may be that, and I think looking at the plan scheme layers, there's a waterway overlay that applies to the drainage line that runs across the driveway from dam to dam, so that provides a reasonable avenue for council to discharge stormwater into that watercourse or that drainage line. It would be an issue if there's no overlay recognised or no drainage function recognised in the planning scheme. That would be an issue where we'll need to make sure that the downstream private property would consent to receiving any stormwater directed onto it. But my view is that because there is that water overlay, that provides a reasonable expectation that that's the function of that part of the drainage system. But it may be, and it's subject to the council gave us a wishes moving the amendment, but it may be that an advice may be sufficient, because I think, and Shane's a different view, I think there's enough in those conditions to provide the ability to deal with it, but highlighting it in the advice for the proponent and the reps will then make it clear that that needs to be considered.
Yes, through the chair. So there is condition 21 of this as a minor and major stormwater systems must be designed and constructed to not exceed the conveyance or treatment capacity of the downstream network. So basically to not make matters worse downstream. So that would be where that would apply. And so we could easily just some advice on that. them to pay attention to the dams that are downstream.
And if that happens after the development has been approved, it's underway and it's built, in fact, rectification will be possible under those terms.
Yeah, and it would be a council responsibility.
Councillor Gatehouse, does that satisfy you? Good point.
Advice does satisfy me as long as it is highlighted that the flow is slowed. And I don't know how you deal with particle filtration. I guess a lot of it is captured in the matter of whatever's put in the drains to slow the flow.
Yeah, it's the table drains that's really
Yeah.
the bulk of the work.
So as long as that is in the final consideration when the plan is signed off by council, then I would be happy with that. Thank you.
Through the chair, we could put an additional advice clause along the lines of, you know, consideration to stormwater velocity and quality discharging onto the properties, Valleyfield Road. It needs to be considered as part of the stormwater design solution. That at least highlights the issue.
Yeah,
And then whichever staff are dealing with it and the proponent knows that it's a consideration in the stormwater design.
thank you. Through the chair, what actually led me to question was on page 24, performance criteria assessment for clause 7.6.3 stormwater discharge in the waterway. A is need to minimise impacts on water quality, and B, the need to mitigate and manage any impacts likely to arise from erosion, sedimentation or runoff. And that's what really sort of drew my attention to the fact that all 3 or 4 are going to impact on the property.
In their letter, the complainant is already saying this is happening.
Yes, to a degree, yes.
And I assume that our council drainage system would probably be better, more effective at transporting water, so to make it worse, rather than soaking it into the ground, as you get in an open drain.
Yes, generally speaking, the capacity council systems are bigger, so flow can be faster. They're usually better constructed and controlled. More
Yeah, so when I say worse, I mean worse from their point of view.
Yeah, no.
More effective.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't feel there's a need to construct some language we build into this formally.
Mr. Chair, I'm just scratching out an additional advice clause, then subject to the mover and then a second, and then become.
Yeah, you do that, that's good. Councillor Gatehouse, I remember an environmentalist talking to us a year or so ago and saying the desirability of open earth drains, because they allow, you know, the environmental water to soak into the ground rather than be transported to the sea.
Yes, through the chair. That's really good meeting and advice. But this is a particularly steep undulating area, maybe too steep to warrant those natural open drains. I don't know, I'm not an expert, but that's how I see it.
There are the standard engineering drawings and guidelines do deal with that. So above a certain slope, they have to have some sort of mitigation, which is usually lining or wood. So I think it's 10%. But is that right? 10%. So it is a pretty standard consideration.
Good check, thank you. And just with that drainage, that will also help with the gravel being washed onto the neighbouring property as well, wouldn't it? Because it's going to get caught in those drains rather than washing through their paddocks.
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if the additional advice clause, where it sits happily in all the advice clauses that are already there, would just be that stormwater discharge velocity, quality, and quantity considerations must be included in the interior design, in particular with regard to 7 Valleyfield sort of road or drive. Road. So if council going has to contend with that,
Yeah.
it needs to be a second to that as an amendment. Then you need to put that amendment up for the vote. And if that is approved, then that becomes part of the recommendation, which then needs to get voted on later.
So in a second for the amendment. Now we need to vote on it.
Yeah.
Just be guided by the GM on this one, right?
A quick question on before the vote. So, after that ends the process, or can we ask some more questions, or how does that go?
I can certainly ask, through Chair, can certainly ask more questions. It's just for that particular amendment request. So you need to put that, we'll put that amendment and the recommendation.
Do you need the recommendation read again before we vote on it? I'd be quite happy with the wording. Well, put the recommendation, those in favour?
To the amendment, okay, that's fine.
Amen.
So that now forms part of the, will form part of the recommendation when we get to that.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Marisol.
Thank you. Yes, a question, please, about the design of the subdivision. And it's about, what's the standard that council expects from subdivisions when we see lots that are behind other lots and not with a frontage to a street? So there's a lot of entries here that are this narrow path, single path towards the back. And they don't, so across here, there's written frontage and, you know, of the lots, but they don't really have a frontage to the street. So what's that minimum standard? What do we expect and what can be done about this?
So through the chair, so yeah, internal lots are always our discretion, and the planning scheme is structured to minimise internal lots, unless necessary for topographical or other reasons. So with this site, we had a lot of requests from various people regarding this site when it was on the market, and there was a consistent line that any development would have to provide a sealed road all the way through to the end, which did put a lot of people off because, as you can tell from the plan, you have to do quite a bit of extend existing public Valleyfield Road and then build quite a bit of road before you even get to the lots. So that, I think that cost, I think, precluded any other loop roads or cul-de-sacs to service those other lots. So we were very keen for that road to be built through, so that there was an alternative access road onto Rosendale Road, which can happen over time for fire or other emergencies or when the bridge is closed. So we were kind of happy with that as a pretty reasonable balance. We get a good public outcome with the through road and it being built to the right standard. And yeah, in exchange, there's obviously some internal lots, but we were happy with those.
Because so it seems like from a standard of growing our suburbs, internal lots they don't really add to the character, to the site, to having access to facilities, and, they're hidden, they're difficult, they're not integrated. So this is also a question as to how do we want our region to grow.
Mhm.
Um,
So, yeah, through the chair, the staff have, in my time, fought back really quite hard against internal lot provisions, refused to couple out at Greens Road, where we thought we had grounds, and it turns out we didn't, and had to roll over. It's a balance. I mean, you couldn't, my suggestion would be there'd be no financially viable way to develop that site without internal lots. To avoid them would be adding at least a couple hundred metres of roads. And we'd probably only get cul-de-sacs anyway, rather than through roads. So, yeah, it's never a one size fits all type of approach. So, yeah, we certainly agree with the principle of avoiding internal lots, but in this case, I think that's a reasonable outcome.
That doesn't have to be thin out of the wedge.
No.
Another question, anyone has a question? Can I go?
So,
Thank you. The other question is about the natural values that end up being the back of these developments. There's the waterway and the lots that reach to the edge of it. And so, what's the approach when this happens? Is there a need to leave some space? It ends up being blocked and no access to it.
Yeah, so the report does touch on open space, and we're just of the view that the land, particularly along the water's edge, is just too steep to be taking council land. Like we wouldn't be able to safely maintain it or look after it as public land. It's not really anything that we could ever use for walking or connectivity or anything like that. So I guess the approach is it should really just remain the status quo being private land to the creek.
Thank you.
Through the chair. The land's zone rural living, but it's surrounded by agricultural land predominantly. When was it zoned? How long has it been rural living? Because it seems quite isolated from the rest of the town. Is that a long-standing thing?
I don't have minutes for that.
I'm just mindful of similar subdivisions in Melbourne, for example, how
So change to the planning block.
Through change from scheme, it was rural living,
okay,
and
so that's
93 scheme, it was low density, a residential C, which I'm presuming was the equivalent of rural living.
So turn that one off. The tick next to the IPS. Scroll down. Scroll down. Just turn that. Tick off.
Turn that one off. No, no, this one, that one.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. You're up, sorry.
There's something behind here.
Okay.
Wow, six.
And low density residential C is roughly equivalent to rural living. It
Through the
seems that
chair,
way, in that
yes.
it's a zone within that agricultural, surrounded by ag.
If you have a, sorry to take over. You're back. Give me 2 seconds, just play some music.
Shane, just a quick question then, while Rob does that.
Sorry, Chef,
No, you're
I'll
okay.
strike on that part, so
I see.
that's rural living.
Yep.
In my view, that's what, Boston Drive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, I'm sure that's a different zone. Yeah, it is. Cancel that. But, I guess, Oriel, yeah, Oriel is
Oriel.
the same as
Yeah.
here, so that's
So,
rural living.
right, so we've got that same,
But if you
Similar.
like density,
similar issues around almost betwixt and between. It's predominantly becoming a residential pocket in an ag zone. And then there's the compromise in terms of public open space and things like that, which we haven't yet planned for. We deal with what we have.
correct?
When,
Thank you.
just to check, when it was approved, when houses are applied for under this scheme, they'll all be discretionary because there's a 200 metre setback to the agricultural zone.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, it's not really that actually a direct consideration at the subdivision stage.
Oh, okay.
But there's it's a sensitive use clause in the zone, so it's trying to get a setback, but they,
Does that mean when it comes to actually building the housing, it has to be at least 200 metres away from the agricultural use or the boundary?
boundary.
Right.
Yeah, and so, yeah, that's the acceptable solution. So they'll all be discretionary because there's no way they can be met. They're all,
Yeah.
100 metres is probably more realistic.
Mhm.
Which you just need to look at at a time.
Okay.
That's what's happening on the agricultural land next door.
Mhm. Thank you.
Shane, can you just clarify for me, that line going through 13, 15, 5 and 6, that's the original boundary?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's the 2 lots there, isn't it? And those red dotted lines, they're the setbacks, aren't they? That's the building envelope that they put on
They
there?
are the red line is the 10 metre side red boundary.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Through the chair, just one comment about or question about the bushfire plan. Does each lot have to have a separate water provision?
They will when houses are built on them.
Right, okay. That doesn't have to be provided by the developer at all, that's each individual lot.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, through the chair, if I may. Another question regarding the lots themselves, the lot sizes. Is it 4 or 5 that are less than 1 hectare? 5 lots, I think, less than 1 hectare. In the report that was submitted, there was a list of lots in the surrounding area. Only one of them was under 1 hectare. Yet in this, there are 5. So is this creating a precedent, for want of a better word, a pattern of development that will see increasingly smaller lots in rural living areas when they're supposed to be 1 hectare minimum?
Through the chair, there won't be a precedent because every case is different. And so look, we recently approved one at less than 1 hectare,
Mhm.
but it's the only lot in that subdivision that could be, like the all goes, it's just not quite So you have to be 1.6 hectares at least to be able to subdivide. That was the only one there that could. So there's no precedent sort of established. Every location's different. I think here it makes a bit of sense in how close it is to Sorell. The difference is really, if they're all 1 hectare, it'd just be one less lot overall. And so 16 lots or 15 lots from a capital point of view, it's not really that.
Yes.
An issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything more? Well, considering the recommendation for 16 lot subdivision at 9 Valley Foot Road, given the proviso.
Do you have one more thing? Sorry.
Sorry,
If I may,
certainly.
through the chair, the public open space provision of 4%, contribution of 4%, is based on the location of the lots outside the township itself. But again, referring to Orielton and other similar places, in past decisions, we've noted that nevertheless, that does increase demand in the township for public open space. So I would prefer to see that maintained at 5%. I wondered if that could be further explained as to why you would adjust it when it's part of the broader township in any way.
Through the chair, I guess the recommendation with the discount is just reflects that when council's got no plans to do anything within walking distance of the site, so they don't have the convenience of being able to walk to the playground, anything like that. They will have to drive, but it is close enough that they will use those facilities at Sorell. So that distinction is no. So that's a very similar rationale to Greens Road, but our Greens Road, Brandy's Road, where there's some intention of doing something out there directly. So yeah, we've recommended 5% Greens Road subdivision, based on my understanding that we're unlikely to do anything here because unlike Greens Road, it is much closer to town and it's a much smaller sort of zone as well. So
Through the chair, on that basis, I would, as I said, prefer to see that as 5% because, for the reasons just explained, those 16 new households will be using our existing public facilities like the playground at Pauline Road, which we are currently needing to find funds for upgrades for toilets, shade, parking and other things. So in that broader context, there's a clear connection between any extra housing and the use of our public facilities. I wonder what the rest of the members would think of changing that to 5%. And I'd like to propose an amendment to that effect on those grounds.
I'm happy to.
Thank you.
What's the phrase the amendment? June, what-
Where's the, sorry, I didn't note the condition.
Through the chair,
Page
just-
28.
Yeah, just be that condition number 3 be amended in the end of the first paragraph to 5% rather than 4%.
Yes, permit 3 be increased to 5%.
So I've got I'm moving a second to amend that condition, so that now needs to, unless there's any question or
I'm happy
debate,
to
then
second that.
We've got a second.
yeah, you can move on to the put that to
So I can read and put it to vote there.
as that, as an amendment, yes.
That's an amendment. Those in favour?
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Yep,
So that, so Chair, that now will also fall.
Yes, so there's two.
It's the recommendation prior.
Right, okay. So given that, those are the two amendments. Do we support the recommendation? As stated? Do I need to move it?
No, just need
No,
to.
just to put it to the vote?
yes,
Yeah, well. Whatever.
thank you.
Anyway, we'll move on to something. Page 34.5, something, I think, 5.2. And this is an update of the waterway and coastal protection area overlay. Do we can have some expert explanation for this? Oh, yeah, yes, sorry. So I'm sorry.
I'll move that, thank you.
Thank you, thanks for your help. Shannon, can you explain this to us?
Yes, so just that my printer hasn't printed the rest of the agenda. Through the chair though, so the amendment which was initiated probably 2 months ago now, it's been advertised for 28 days. There were 2 representations received. One was a statement of support for what's been proposed, and the other was from a landowner at Primrose Sands who objected to having the waterway provisions apply to their property. And in that case, it's really no change. There's some very slight alteration, but it's just the status quo, and unfortunately, we actually don't really get a say on whether it applies or not, because it is the state planning scheme that says where it applies, not council. So the recommendation is really just to note it, receive it, and then it will go to the planning commission for a decision.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you. So I was just going to further to that. The purpose is simply to align the overlay with closer to what the actual waterways or
Yep.
the latest data.
That's right.
provides.
That's right. Over time, we get better data, more accurate data, and you can then just use that to more accurately map what applies.
But even so, on page 36, there's the picture of the situation at Primrose Sands. Is there a way of seeing the sort of broader picture? I suppose illustrating what you've just said about the way that affects the whole area. It's not just one. All I'm saying is it's not just one property.
No, you're right. So, yeah, we can show it too. Sort of. So if you go down to, going down, or up, are you planning? I still go. Let's keep going down a bit. Just turn those off and scroll down. Let's just keep going down. Click on that non-statutory. I'll just turn this on. No, actually, sorry, I can't. That's an old version. But effectively, the rule is that 40 metres of high water mark overlay applies to. And so that difference that you saw on the page in terms of
Yes.
the red line and the blue line is just, when you do it in the computer, you can specify how precise or not it is, and so you just get differences. In that case, because here the high water map isn't different, in other locations the high water mark is very different. Now it's the complete rehashing of it.
So in the Primrose, this part of Primrose Sands, there's not much difference between the old and the new, whereas in other places, say Midway Point, for example, there's quite a big
Yeah,
difference.
correct.
Thank you.
Can I have the mover for the recommendation?
He's got it.
We did that.
No. Fine, no, not fine. So we put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Good to see you back.
Good to be back. I'll